23, Joe?
If I'm not mistaken, we went in, I believe we rented some movies. Me and the kids, the wife went over to Karen house. We went to Triple T movie theater, got a couple of movies and stuff, grabbed some McDonald's and things, and went back home. I think we went by cab, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, that night there, we stayed, we chilled, and I believe that was the third, so the fourth, got ready to go to the south side of town, and I was coming out the gas station. I gave the woman a $20 bill. I bought a pack of cigarettes. I had the cigarettes in my mouth, and I had the beer up under my arm. And I was counting my money, and I looked up, and Kenny was at the pump. He said, "Hey, Joe." And I looked up, I seen him, I just started walking over to him, and we shook hands. I said, "Man, long time no see, what's been going on?" He said, "Not too much." He said, "I'm just in town, man, just chilling." And I asked him where he been, why haven't I seen him in a while? He said, "Well, staying busy." And I told him, I stay around the corner. I'm like, "Kill it now, man." I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "Well, you got to get the brothers, out more often." And he's like, "What are you doing now?" I'm like, "I'm going over the south side of town." And he's like, "Well, I want to ride with you. I'll go over there with you." Well, make a long story short, we went the long way, so I showed him where I stayed. And we went on the south side of town. We just rode around, drank the beer, and just chatted, just chit-chat. Now, it was getting late. It's probably like, I want to say close to 12 or after 12 o'clock, somewhere in there. And as we rode around, we were talking about, making some fast money. And as we approached Wendy's, I was like, "Man, I used to work right there, man." I said, when I used to work there, I used to take their meat and I used to sell it. And I said, "That's some quick money." I said, "People buy their meat, they buy them chicken patties, they buy their hamburger meat." And he was like, "Yeah." And he was like, I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Plus they got a safe in there too, man." I said, "But I just want the meat, man." And he was like, "Well, all right." He said, "I'm down with it." So we went around, and when we parked across the street from Wendy's, and he was like, "Man, how much stuff is going to be in there?" I said, "It's going to be a lot." And I looked in this car. We was looking at this car. He's like, "Man, it may not all fit up in here." I'm like, "Hold on, I got a homie still right around the corner." I said, "I'm gonna get him." I said, "His name is Noah." I said, "He's a good homie." I said, "He won't say anything." I went around the corner, and I got him. I brought Noah back. Noah parked behind his car, and then I introduced Noah to Kenny, this and that. So we all went over to Roosevelt, and I took a rock went on Roosevelt Street, and I took a rock. I busted the drive-through window. I clammed through, and when I clammed through, I cut my arm. And I was going to the back door to let them through. When I looked back, Kenny had come through too, through the window as well. And I opened the door for Noah. And as I opened the door for Noah, I grabbed this dolly. I said, "Come on, Noah, come on, man. Let's go. Let's get in this cooler right here." And Kenny like, "Where the office? Where the office? Where the office?" I said, "It's right there. It's right down that way." So we went in the cooler. We got this meat. We put on Dolly. Dolly had a flat tire. So we loaded all this case of meat on the thing. And so we was whistling for Kenny to come on, man, let's go. We ready to roll. So we pulled the meat and stuff out of the Wendy's. And Kenny had the cane, so I went back. I said, "Man, let's go. So I went in the office, and that's when I seen all the paper sprawled out everywhere. And I seen some drops of blood. I was like, "Man, let's go. We finna roll." So he was like, "Man, I got to get this safe open." I was like, "No, man, we got to go." So we all left, and we had to go over the medium. As we're going across Roosevelt, we had to go over the medium, to get over to the street that we had parked. So all of us pulling this meat over, we dropped a couple of cases, we put it back on the dolly, we pulled the dolly over the medium, the grass and all that, and we get over there to the car. When we get to the car, Noah popped his trunk, boom, and we put the meat in Noah's car, and I put the dolly behind the cleaners, and then we went over to Noah. Kenny followed us over to Noah's house. When we got over to Noah's house, I think it was 3 cases that I gave Noah. I took 2, he took 1, I took 1, and Kenny was busting down 1. And we took him in Noah's house. And when we came out, Noah was like, "Hey, man," he said, "Joey, I ain't got no gas to get all the way over to your house, which is down on North Hill." And he said, "Man," he said, "Can you sell my neighbor a sleep leave it as me for me, man, so I can get some money because I need it because I don't have any gas, bro. So I was like, okay. So his neighbor, I don't know where he was come from. So his neighbor came out, and I asked him if he wants to buy some Wendy's Spanish. He's like, nah, man, I'm good. So I told Noah, no. He said, no, man. So Noah like, okay, I tell you what, we're going to go over Mo's house. This is Mose Johnson. That was Noah's brother. He said, we're going to go over there, man. He said, sell him a sleeve for $20 for me, man. So we went over to Mo's house, and I sold Mo a sleeve of meat for $20. Mo bought it off the back. I gave Noah the money. We left there. Us three left there because Kenny was troubled. Us three left there. We went on to the gas station, and Kenny went on to my house. So we went on to the gas station, got the gas, went to my house. Me and Noah parked in front. Kenny was on the side, so we offloaded the meat on my porch. Noah took on off, boom. Me and Kenny sat there and we broke the meat down out of the cardboard. We divided what we had. We put it in his car. So as we were dividing it up, we sat there and we smoked a joint and we kicked it for a minute. And Kenny left his shoes next to the couch because when he got ready to leave, he was like, Joe, he's like, I'm out of here, man. He said, I'll catch you later, man. And I picked up a cardboard and I picked up the rest of my meat, some of my meat, and I pulled the door open. That's what made me realize that the shoes were there because the screen door hit the shoes. And when I got ready to yell for Kenny, Kenny, your shoes. But he was already pulling off. So I was like, damn it. So I went on upstairs. I dropped the shoes by my couch. And I put the cardboard next to my trash can. Then I put some of the meat in the freezer. Then I went downstairs, got the other meat, put it in the freezer. Then I went and took me a bath. I got in bed. And the next morning, when my wife woke up, she asked me where I had been. And I told her, she's like, man, you're going to end up in prison messing with Kenny and them. And she's like, Joe, I keep on telling you, quit running the streets, this and that. I'm like, man, I ain't trying to hear that. And then she's like, so she went in the front room. She's like, and whose stuff is this? I said, it's Kenny's shoe. She said, get that shit up out my house. She said, you know, I can't stand that stealing and stuff. You know, she said, I ain't down with it. So I got on up. I went in there. I got the cardboard next to my garbage cans. I got the shoes. I put the shoes next to my garage step, and I put the cardboard next to the trash can. And then I think it was the next day of I believe it was the next day. It was the 6th. The 6th came. The 6th came. No, it wasn't the next day. It was the 6th. I was out getting the mail and killing the spider because my ex-wife had continued to ask me about killing the spider, and I didn't get around to it. So finally, I went down there to get the mail, and I was going to kill the spider. As I'm killing the spider, he come from around the side of the building, and he was like, Joe, what's up, man? I was like, what's going on, man? Because he kind of startled me. And he was like, no, nothing, man, just chilling, man. He was like, what have you heard, man? Any ideas, you know what I'm saying? Have they said anything about who did Wendy's, this and that? You know, do you think it's going to come back on us? I was like, nah, man, I haven't heard anything. He said, I haven't had a chance to read the paper. I haven't heard nothing. Well, so we sat there, we kicked it for a minute. I told him, hey, your shoes, man, is back there by the garage. She was like, why is my shoes back there by the garage? I said, man, you know, Emma ain't down with that bull, and she really don't like you, this and that. He was like, man, whatever. So we kicked for a couple more seconds. So I turned and went on in the house, and he was headed toward the shoes. And from that day forward, I have not seen him.
Awesome. And then, it was Kenny, white or black?
He's white.
On 5/6/1993 at approximately 1 p.m., Detective Grimshaw was notified by Captain Joe Stewart to speak with Noah Johnson, who was on the phone. Captain Stewart advised that Noah Johnson might possibly have some information regarding the Wendy's burglary that had just occurred on 5/4/1993. Detective Grimshaw spoke with Noah on a three-way line that included Noah Johnson, Captain Stewart, and Detective Grimshaw. Detective Grimshaw identified himself to Noah and asked him what he could tell him in reference to the Wendy's burglary. Noah stated that he first wanted to know what was going to happen to him, and I told Noah I didn't understand, meaning Detective Grimshaw. Noah stated that he didn't want to be arrested. Detective Grimshaw asked him if he had been involved in the burglary at Wendy's, and he stated that he had not. However, he had stated that he had come across some of the merchandise from Wendy's, and he wanted to make sure first that he wasn't going to be arrested for having it before he told anything to the investigators. Detective Grimshaw advised Noah Johnson that he would not arrest him, but that he would like to know who he thought broke into Wendy's. Detective Grimshaw stated that at that time that he believed that Joe Cannon had broken into Wendy's. Detective Grimshaw had said that Noah was approached on 5/4/1993 by Joe Cannon, referenced buying some Wendy's hamburger meat from him, and he feels that Joe Cannon was responsible for that break-in. Noah said to Detective Grimshaw that he had read the paper on Wednesday and had read the article about the Wendy's break-in and was worried that he might get into trouble for having some of the meat. Noah Johnson also told Grimshaw that a 2-wheeled cart was used to haul the meat away. However, Grimshaw did not ask Noah Johnson if he had gotten that information from the newspaper or if he had been told that by Joe Cannon. Detective Grimshaw did specifically ask Noah Johnson if Joe Cannon told him he did the Wendy's burglary, and Noah Johnson told Detective Grimshaw that Joe did not specifically tell him that. However, Noah stated he did purchase meat from Joe and was aware that Joe had meat from Wendy's burglary. Detective Grimshaw advised Noah that he would contact him later and he would appreciate it if he would save the Wendy's papers that were between the hamburger patties that he had already had, and asked him to bring those to the police department for Detective Grimshaw. Detective Grimshaw further told Noah Johnson that he may contact him in the future after he had a chance to look further into the case due to the fact that it had not been assigned to Detective Grimshaw yet. After Noah Johnson spoke with Detective Grimshaw from 5/6, 5/7, 5/8, those 3 consecutive days, no detective or anybody in the Burlington Police Department ever contacted or communicated in any way with Joe Cannon after that information was allegedly coughed up by Noah Johnson on 5/6/1993. Approximately 10:53 a.m., Detective Grimshaw arrived at 711 South 9th Street, where he was met by Officer Gaddis, the responding officer to the original call. Grimshaw met with Francis Murphy. Grimshaw spoke briefly with Francis Murphy at the scene, in his squad car, in front of the residence. Francis Murphy advised Grimshaw that apparently the night before, on a Friday night, at about 4:45 p.m., he, Francis, Scott Snyder, and Orley went to the auction at the auction barn on Agency Street. And at about 6 p.m., Francis told Grimshaw that he left, and Orley and Scott stayed at the auction. He stated he left to go meet Mary Lou Capps to play bingo at St. John's Church, and he left playing bingo at approximately 9:45 p.m. that night.
Hello, you have a call at no expense to you from an inmate at Anamosa State Penitentiary in Anamosa, Iowa. You must listen to this entire message before entering a selection. To accept this call, press 9.
Before arriving to residence 711 South 9th Street, Detective Grimshaw was advised by Captain Stewart and Detective Cassidy that there was a victim, 89-year-old Caucasian male Orley Culp, that had been beaten apparently with a baseball bat. He was then rushed to the hospital. Francis Murphy indicated that morning he had went to Hardee's and picked up a sandwich and then drove over to Orley Culp's residence. When he had got to the front of the residence, he noticed that Orley was not standing out front like he normally would be. So he got out of his vehicle and went to the side door located on the south side of the residence. Francis stated that as he opened the screen door, he noticed that the plexiglass was broken out of the wooden door that enters into the kitchen. wrong, so he ran out in the front of the house and yelled for help. A gentleman who was delivering flowers went back to Orley's residence with Francis, and they found Orley laying on the living room floor. Francis advised that the gentleman he asked for help told Francis that Orley was still alive and told Francis to go call for help. Francis stated that he then realized that the telephone cord had been pulled loose from the wall, thus the phone did not work. Francis stated that he went to a neighbor's to use the phone to call for an ambulance. After receiving all this information from Francis Murphy, Detective Grimshaw and another detective told Francis Murphy that we would be contacting him for a more in-depth interview. At approximately 11:15 a.m., Detective Grimshaw began to process the crime scene. When Grimshaw arrived at the residence, he did notice that the house and yard area of Orley Culp's had been cornered off by yellow tape indicating police line do not cross. And Grimshaw began a cursory viewing of both the outside and inside of the residence before processing the scene. After he walked around the exterior, he was then in the interior of the residence, and also when walking the interior of the residence, observed the crime scene. Grimshaw then took numerous photographs of the exterior of the residence as well as numerous photographs of the interior of the residence. Grimshaw photographed and videotaped the complete exterior and interior of the residence. This is actual footage from 1993, May 8th, 1993 at Orley Culp's residence. Grimshaw's reports states as followed regarding the condition of the residence upon his arrival. He noted that the south entrance door, which appears to be the point of entry, was standing open upon his arrival. He noticed as he walked into the kitchen area, there were no lights on in the kitchen. However, there was a night light on the east kitchen wall near the stove as this light was on. He also noticed that on the door of the point of entry, that the deadbolt was unlocked and that the doorknob lock was actually unsecured. He did notice a chain lock. However, it appeared that the chain lock was not being used due to it being hung up in its holder on the door jamb in a perfect position. Grisham was also able to notice that there did not appear to be any blood or any type of disturbance that was out of the ordinary, which would have been consistent with a struggle that might have taken place in the kitchen. It appeared to the kitchen from the porch, everything was undisturbed to the best that I could tell, Grisham stated. Grisham said it was apparent, however, that there was not a struggle in the kitchen, but however was in the living room. As Grisham looked immediately to the right or to the east, he was standing in the kitchen, and as he was looking into the living room, he could tell from that point of view that there was a lot of papers on the floor, which were apparently from the ambulance crew. These papers were located in the vicinity of several blood stains and smears on the carpeting. It appeared that this is possibly a location where the victim had gotten to or had laid for some time due to the amount of blood in the area of the floor, and also due to the fact that a lot of the blood had started to dry. Detective Grimshaw noted that in the living room area near the blood stains that there was a telephone or a telephone stand. It was apparent that the telephone cord had been pulled or jerked away from the telephone jack. Detective also noted that it appeared as though someone had gone through a small table with the doors as they were open in the corner of the living room. Detective, as he was standing in the living room, was able to then look into Orley Culp's bedroom from the living room. Looking north through the doorway of the bedroom, the detective was able to observe a bed which appeared to be the bed belonging to Orley Culp. It was apparent to me, the detective, that there was a lot of blood on the bedding and the pillows, and the detective also observed a wooden baseball bat lying across the bed. The detective also noticed, looking through the door into Orley Culp's bedroom, that it appeared that someone had gone through the dresser drawers. This would have been 2 dressers in the bedroom due to the fact that all the dresser drawers were hanging open. In the doorway between the dining room and Orley Culp's bedroom, near the bloodstain area of the floor, the detective noticed a pair of pants and also a billfold and some billfold contents that were strewn about the floor. As the detective entered Orley Culp's bedroom, he looked through the east bedroom door into what appeared to be a den. This room contained a dresser, a desk, a filing cabinet, a couple of chairs, and it appeared to be that someone had gone through the dresser, the desk, and the filing cabinets because of the papers being strewn all over the floor. And also, the drawers of these items were standing wide open. The detective also noticed that the front door to the residence, however, later known, come to find out that this door had just been opened for the ambulance crew, was opened. When the detective was in the den and the bedroom of Orley Culp's, he did not notice any lights that were on. He also said and noticed that there were no lights on in the living room or dining room. But did notice it appeared that all of the windows were shut in the residence and most of the blinds were open except for the blinds in Orley Culp's bedroom. These were closed at the time of the assault, and this was determined by the blood splattering being on the blinds as they were in the closed position. The detective went to the rear of the residence and found that there was a back door of the west portion of the residence. However, that door was secure. The detective also went into the basement of the residence, however, found nothing disturbed in the basement. It was apparent that there was blood splatter on the north and west wall in Orley Culp's bedroom, and also appeared to be some blood splattering on the pillows and bedding. The blood spattering was photographed by the detective while at the scene. At the scene, detectives did collect several items to be fingerprinted, namely the telephone found in Orley Culp's bedroom on the bed, paperwork from the den area, the baseball bat, and these items were sent to the DCI lab. The detective photographed the baseball bat that was lying on the bed and also recovered some what appeared to be white or gray hairs, which were matted to the bat with the blood. Again, those were collected and placed into evidence after the bat was photographed. The detective also located in the den area a checkbook box which contained checks. It was apparent to the detective that someone had removed the red checkbook box cover and also noted that on the checkbook box bottom, which was white, there apparently had been glove prints on either side of the box. These items again were photographed and sent to the DCI lab for analysis. At the conclusion of this walkthrough, within 24 hours, an arrest would be made for the assault of Orley Culp, and that arrest was Joe Willis Cannon.
Hey, Joe, I have a couple questions for you. I just want to clarify. Going through your stuff, a lot of crazy stuff, but you already know that.
Yeah, you just wait till you get to the bottom of it. You'll be like, your head probably spinning, right?
Oh, for sure.
Can you hear me there, Miss Vargas? I don't know if you can hear me. Again, good evening, everybody.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. What is up? Thanks for joining us this evening. That is the intro into episode number 1 with a couple things being talked about here live. We're going to talk about how you got involved with Joe Cannon's case. But in a follow-up here to the live, or I should say to the pre-record, is these were the persons that were actually inside the home of the victim, who ended up, passing on May 17th, 1993, from those injuries that he suffered between, May 7th to May 8th. And those would be Francis Murphy, Rodney Wyman, Janet Wyman, Greg Thompson, and Kimberly McT. Greg Thompson and Kimberly McT were the neighbors to the right of Mr. Culp, and Francis Murphy was actually coming over to pick up Mr. Culp to go to an auction. And Rodney and Janet, they were actually across the street getting flowers for Mother's Day to deliver them. And these other members here, which would be Bob, Alan, Lyle, and Wayne, those are actually the Burlington fire personnel that responded to the scene that morning. They were actually dispatched over there. This is actual reports that were handwritten by these EMT firefighters that actually entered into the home, and it was at 9:26 a.m., I believe. The handwriting can be a little bit shaky, but basically all four of those ambulance and EMT firefighters that went in, those four people, they wrote a report that said what they saw. And the big thing is that they came through actually the front door. All of those four or five, citizens, they went through the back door. The ambulance crew went through the front door. But they went ahead and listed, what they saw at the scene. Then, which is pretty consistent for the most part, for most of the members that were there. Like I said, some handwriting is, better than others, but all of them gave an account of what they saw. And that is going to be coming up in the different interview parts. Wanted to speak on our victim and then hear from you with, here we go. I'm going to zoom in here for you. Orley was, this is actually an obituary. And then I'm sure you probably put together that family tree. Orley was 89. Again, the address there was 713 South 9th Street, Burlington, Iowa. He died May 17th, 1993. He was born April 10th, 1904. He was married to Zella. They wed 1923. She actually passed May 20th of 1972. Mr. Culp had worked as a machinist for the railroad and for 34 years. He retired in 1956. His survivors allegedly here in this obituary says that two sons, Larry Culp and Lloyd Culp, which we'll get more into that, a brother, Delford, one sister, Irene, and it says 9 grandchildren, 9 great-grandchildren. Again, we'll get into more of that, as I'm sure you have some things to say about that. But Mr. Culp here, he was actually, after the railroads, he went ahead and during the time that he was involved with his railroads, he was purchasing a lot of property to become a, I guess you could say, a landlord. So all of the different properties that he has owned, I mean, there's just lists of them. he had something like 20 to 30, 35 different properties. This is the article that came out. Burlington man charged in 89-year-old man death. You're laughing at the picture of Joe Cannon, aren't you?
I am. We have an inside joke about that photo. He very much dislikes it, and so I have promised for every visit I will wear the shirt of that face.
All right. So yeah, that was the picture that they put in. This is actually the victim here on the left, and this is actually a more recent picture of Joe. And so let's go ahead and right before we get into when you got involved and everything that you've done, since it's fresh in everybody's mind, what they just saw is this is actually the exhibit list from what they took and offered and then admitted, into evidence. And this was from August 31st, 1993, right before the trial. And everybody, it's fresh in your mind. So to see, they have the photo of the house, photos of him at the hospital in the ambulance, an autopsy report, a map diagram. Again, more photos of his house, more house photos. We'll get into that more in the later episodes. Photo of the bed, ceiling, wall. They didn't list what those photos were of. House, plexiglass. We're going to get so into that. A couple episodes are truly dedicated to that timeline. A telephone. They don't say which one. A phone cord, a phone base, clothing, t-shirt, underwear, clothes, wallet and papers, baseball bat, hairs. We're going to get into all of that. Pillow and pillowcase, towel, bedspread. And then we got another wallet, videotape, which actually you guys just saw. That's the videotape. Then they got photos of Joe's house, which I haven't seen any of those. Then the rear of Joe's. Then there's a receipt at the alleyway, which is where they allegedly said that they found the shoe, one of the shoes. Then the tennis shoe, another tennis shoes, meat wrappers. We're going to get into the whole thing about Wendy's boxes, one of Joe's friends' houses, a gold chain that Joe was wearing. It was offered but never admitted. Let's see. And then we have some, again, another friend's house, a telephone bill that was never admitted, offered though. Envelope with footprints. We're going to get into all about the evidence there, because that's pretty much what Joe's looking at in order to come home. New evidence and possibly affidavits from people that are wanting to recant what they've said due to being I guess you could say threatened by law enforcement. Photos of Joe, black and white footprints, and black and white footprints, shoe footprints, envelopes. So, but you would think that from that crime scene, nothing was of interest, and it's pretty interesting that nothing would be of interest in that kitchen, which, but we're going to get into all of that. Let's go backwards, or let's go back to you. And I want to hear all about how in the world did you come across Joe Cannon?
Joe Cannon has a fiance, and her sister is married to a gentleman who was the one who reached out to me. Interestingly, they watched my 48 Hours episode on the Roxanne Wood case, and Kevin is his name, decided to, they believed that the Lord had guided them to me, that I was the person that they were to be in contact with to help them help Joe. And so he actually reached out to me on my woodworking Facebook page, which was interesting because 48 Hours did not state the name of my woodworking company, and my woodworking page does not state my name. So, of course, had to call him back. And the first thing I said to him was, "How in the hell did you put two and two together? I would, I'll hire you as one of my detective stalkers." Um, but anyways, they were looking for assistance with the case. They were kind of dumbfounded that I even called them, and is this really you? Conversation took place. And then they went on to tell me what had happened. At the time, this conversation happened on February 1st of this year, was when I was contacted by the family. And the Innocence Project, the Midwest Innocence Project, had been involved in this case for the last 5 years. They believed in Joe. They believed that Joe was innocent. And they believed that there were a lot of mistakes made in this case, prosecutorial misconduct, Brady violations, ineffective counsel. Out of that list of evidence that you read off, that's only what was used at trial. There was a lot of DNA that was collected. The only thing that was tested per se or ran were the fingerprints, 2 sets of unidentified fingerprints, both of which came back neither to Joe Cannon nor to the victim, Orley Culp. He was there was no DNA evidence that convicted him. So the Innocence Project was interested in getting in contact with me and seeing, with the advance in technology with IgG, was there something that I could do to assist in this case? What I found out pretty early was there was it's called an 8110 that the Innocence Project had submitted to the courts, which basically asks for post-conviction testing of DNA for items that were not previously tested at trial. This motion was granted, and it was so ordered that the evidence could be retested. And this was in I want to say it was 2021, but the evidence didn't actually get retested, and the results came in October of 2022. What I was told initially through my conversation with the Innocence Project, or MIP, was that the DNA evidence could not include nor exclude Joe Cannon as a suspect in this case. Because of that, there really wasn't much more that they could do for him. And they wanted to know if the technique that I used was something that would benefit him in this case.
And what'd you say? Like,
So right off of the bat, and I won't name it, but right off of the bat, I was told what lab was used. And that was my first red flag. And I said to them, I have had many cases in which this lab is unable to get a genetic profile, even a partial profile. And I would recommend using another lab. I went on later on to make contact with that other lab, and they were actually willing to retest all of the evidence at no charge if they could not obtain a full genetic profile. So on the evidence that was tested, there was one telephone base, just the base of the phone. It was ripped out of the wall. They only tested, here's one mistake, the lateral sides of the telephone. And if you think about this logically, if I'm pulling a phone out from the wall, I will have prints or DNA, touch DNA on the back. I will have it on the sides, on the front. Then where's the phone the handle? It's not attached to the phone, so I'm going to have DNA on that. Then there's two phones. Which phone was the one that was used? We do see one when you look kind of around this corner that is on the floor. Clearly, it looks like it's been ripped from the wall. But if you continue on and look at the phone that is up on the table, you can see that the cord is not attached to anything right there. And so could that be the phone that was used? We don't know, and we don't know which phone was tested. Then we've got the cord. If you see here on this phone, we have these old phones. So you've got the straight part of the cord that goes from the wall to the phone, and then you have the curly part of the phone or the cord that goes from the base to the phone. Now, as you see clearly in these, in this video, both of those phones have the straight piece of the cord attached to it. But Mr. Culp was, while at the hospital, they removed the curly part as well as a straight part of a cord. So where did that straight part come from? They tested both of those items. They also tested the baseball bat that was said to have been the weapon. What I found interesting was the way they tested the bat. They tested the handle of the bat, and then they tested one side of the base of the bat. I don't know baseball, but when I think about a bat, I think about I'm holding it like this, and essentially my fingers, if you can see, are in line with each other. And on the other side, there's nothing, right? So if I'm holding a bat, the right thing, the logical thing to do is to test all the way around the bat, and that wasn't done. In addition to that, if this was the murder weapon as they claim, that is the only place that they tested, those two locations. Now, I am a mom. I'm not a baseball player, but I think about, well, when my kids leave, my son leaves a bat around, I don't know how you're supposed to properly pick it up. I just pick it up from the middle of the bat and put it away. Why was that not tested? Again, red flags. The other piece of evidence, and please, if you remember, remind me. I know that there was the phone, there was the cord, the two cords, and then there was the bat. I think that was it. I may be missing something. So on all of these items, what I was told on the phone from MIP was on one of the items, they did not get a profile at all, and they consumed all of the DNA. On the other two items, they could not include nor exclude Joe as a suspect. And on the third item, they could not, or the fourth item, they could not include nor exclude Joe as a suspect, but they did indicate that it was a partial profile. It only had 3 markers that showed up with partial alleles. And this was on the bat itself. The important thing that they said in that conversation to me was, and it says it had no Y DNA. So I explain what I believe they should do. And I said, I think you used the wrong lab. I advise you to use this lab. And I have spoken to this lab, and they have assured me that if the other lab is able to get a partial profile, then they guarantee that they can get a full genetic profile. And so I told MIP that if this lab, my lab, can get a full genetic profile, then I guarantee that I can get you the actual suspect. And so that was on about the 17th of February when all of this took place. I don't know if you want me to continue or if you want to hone in
Yeah,
on
keep
here
rocking.
something.
Keep rocking. I'm
Okay.
over here Flipper Girl. I'm over here Vanna Whiting it.
Well, you know what? I worry sometimes that I'm like talking too much and people want me to shush. So, okay. So what happens next is now I am getting into knowing the family, his fiance, her sister, and her sister's husband. And we start this like group chat, and I'm fighting for them. And I'm like, look, if they want to take on my services, I will offer my services pro bono to assist you guys in this case, because I knew the Innocence Project is a nonprofit, and I really wanted to get in with doing exoneration cases. So it was kind of a win for me as well, business wise. So that was kind of it. I continued. So from February, so I was contacted February 1st, February 17th. I have this call with MIP, and then I don't hear anything. And so the family's kind of, asking me, have you heard anything? What's going on? And I'm like, I haven't heard anything. Have you heard anything? And nobody's heard anything, including Joe. And so finally I just said, I'm gonna reach out again. And I had called the lab, I had made arrangements. I found out that these two labs actually, the one I want them to send the DNA to was contracted with with the lab that they used. So it was very easy to just get it sent over, because there was some confusion as to whether or not the court order kind of contradicted itself a little bit. It says this specific lab you may use to uh, have the DNA retested, but then it also says you can have it retested at a lab of your choice. So we didn't know if we went to this other lab, would we have to refile the 8110 and get a new order authorizing that, or did this current order support it? And so things were kind of just in limbo. I have no response for a month. Finally, I believe it was March 22nd, I get a hold of somebody after I kind of make a big stink, and I'm like, for each day that you people are not calling me back, not emailing me back, this man is spending another day in prison. Now, other than what MIP told me on the phone, I did not have access to the file. I did not know if he was innocent. I was just willing to offer my services. And it was on March 31st that Joe was informed by MIP that they were dropping his case. It was a very, very devastating day for all of us. To know that after 5 years of investing in him and having believed in him, um, that they were walking away from it all. And I didn't understand. I did not understand. And somebody's putting of 2023 is, yes, this is when, this was just a few months ago that this happened. And so, I talked to Joe. He had, called me, um, and he's upset, and he tries to hold back and be strong. And I said, Joe, it's okay. It's okay. We're gonna get through it. And he says, I want you to stay on the case. And I said, okay, I what am I gonna do? I need DNA. There's nothing here. Like, there's I don't know what to tell you. I can't stay on the case. I don't have a job. I'm not an attorney. Like, I'm not a paralegal. I'm not. any of the things that I would think that someone in his position needed, right? Um, so he said, just do me a favor. Can you just let me send you this DNA report, and then you can decide if you're going to walk away from it or not. And I plan to still continue to support the family and him and be a good friend. But professionally, there really wasn't anything that I knew of that I could do for him. Um, so then I get the lab results, and I believe I shared those with you. And maybe you can say what your impression of them was.
Well, I will say this, that there's I have no idea why they didn't continue. I guess you could say it very politely, because the DNA results actually prove that Joe's DNA is not anywhere in this crime scene. And in fact, there's been so many things that have not been tested that I think 100% would uh, definitely give it would prove Joe not to be the person that did this. I
And
think
that
that
that is correct. I
I think that
know that
the Y on the bat, but it was basically the results were that I think that they didn't tell you the truth. I think that they were
they
not.
did not, and I couldn't understand why they did not, and so I did contact them in an effort to try to understand, and the reason or the explanation that was provided to me was, well, we're not scientists, we're not, how are we supposed to read this, and understand it, and listen, I can accept that response from someone who is reading something so scientific that it is very difficult to comprehend unless you're in that field. Okay. However, this listed, it was, the four items of evidence and how they were tested. And it says item number 1 and 2, which I believe I have the DNA report. I should have grabbed it, but item number 1 and 2 were so the victim and Joe's DNA were taken and used as a comparison. So items number 1 and 2, which was, I believe, the phone cord and the straight part and the curly part, 100% excluded Joe Cannon as the contributor of that DNA profile. 100%. Then the next item was the base of the phone, which was, considered one item. They only did both lateral sides. Mind you, let me go back to the cord. The victim could not be excluded as a DNA contributor with the phone cord. Then we go to the base of the phone. You saw the phone. Somebody pulled that phone out. If you also look, the handle to the phone is on the bed, right? There's no blood on it. So this is not, the victim didn't take it off and leave it on the bed. And it says that the victim cannot be included nor excluded as a contributor, but Joe Cannon can be 100% excluded as the DNA contributor of that genetic profile.
Yep.
Then there lies the bat. The bat was only a partial profile. So I believe in total there was about 17 markers for the STR testing. And only, I want to say, 3 markers came back. However, one was a full marker with 2 alleles, and 2 of them were partial. So they only had 1 allele. It wouldn't stand up in court for the way that this is, because it's not enough to prove it wasn't his DNA. But the markers that they were able to pull did not match Joe's markers. They did not match his alleles. So even though there were 13 more alleles that would have to match, you have to have an overall, accuracy of not matching at a certain percentage. So it wouldn't match that threshold. However, there was no Y DNA. And this is the most crucial part, because who has Y DNA? Only males, genetically males, right? Biological males only carry Y DNA. And if there's no Y DNA, even if it's a partial profile, it ain't a man's profile. Therefore, it can't be Joe Cannon's profile. And how they can say that the DNA cannot include nor exclude him was mind-boggling to me. And so I had, Joe calls me and literally every 5 minutes, did you get the DNA? Did you look at it yet? What do you think? And when I finally, I had to figure out how I was going to tell him and his family what I just finished reading, because it would be such a disappointment to know that they let go of him and they had a chance still to fight for him. And it was very disappointing to know, because I've always had a lot of respect for the different innocence projects and the work that they do.
That we're gonna give Joe
Go ahead.
some hope here. Because and we're gonna leave this episode here with a little boom and a cliffhanger all in one. And what we're going to show is this report here was done up by none other than Mr. Grimshaw, which was the detective. And on 5/8 was the day that he was processing that scene. And in this report, he says that approximately 3:15, I spoke to Tony Bruner at Dylan's restaurant in reference to what involvement he had. He says, with Dylan, at Dylan's restaurant, 3:15. Now, this is the same guy that would be processing the scene. And this papers back in the day, he began to process the scene at 2:25 p.m. on 5/8. 3:15, 5/8. So he begins to process the scene at 2:25. And everything that he's going around and grabbing, he's noting. And we get to the plexiglass, which is very, very important in Joe's case, because that's pretty much what got Joe convicted, was this plexiglass with this alleged footprint on it. So I went through, and G1 through all the way through G5, G6, those have to do with the plexiglass that has this alleged, footprint impression from the shoes. He began at 2:43 taking the different pieces. So 2:43, 3:22, see that gap? 2:43, 3:22, 3:24, 3:25. No time on this piece. These are all pieces that are right next to each other in the kitchen, okay? Then we get to G6, collected at 6, that says 6:40, okay? 6:40. The same guy that is processing the scene, Detective Grisham, is at Dylan's restaurant at 3:15, interviewing Tony Bruner, while he is supposed to be processing the scene. We have him in a deposition saying that he never left the scene to do anything. Not only do we have him stating that he is Superman and can be in two places at the one time, or if he's going to try to say that he was able to drop everything, that he was processing a scene and going and interviewing none other than this man.
And it was actually 3 things he was doing at the same time, right?
We're going to get to that. Because then
Yeah.
at 6:40, when he's saying that he's collecting this last piece of plexiglass, you can also see him saying that he is collecting bloody pants and shirt, as well as locking up the house, all at 6:40. So that's the boom that we're going to leave. That's the boom that we're going to leave you with, and that's where it's going to stay. We're going to be back next week with episode 2. Thank you so much, Ms. Vargas, and Truth and Transparency. Appreciate you, all of you guys that are listening and watching. Mr. Cannon is 100% innocent of the murder of this 89-year-old victim at the time, Mr. Orley Culp, 100%. And I'm going to prove it, and then Ms. Vargas is going to go out and test that DNA to double prove it.
And I just want to say one last thing is that I have taken over since February or March when they dropped the case myself. I've got thousands of pages of evidence. I have now joined, added you to my team. I have a theory. I think you have confirmed my theory and have even found more information, things that I haven't gotten to yet. And we don't have an attorney in this case, folks. This is me and Lana doing this now together. And we're pretty fucking badass, because you can already see all of the things that we have uncovered that the police couldn't. And there were multiple agencies involved in this. There was DPS, DCI, FBI, Burlington Police, and West Burlington Police. And Lana and I are kicking way more ass.
And also appeared to be some blood splattering on the pillows and bedding. I would say that the police, the blood splattering was photographed. We'll wait on that. By the detective while at the scene. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you. We'll see you next time. Truth and Transparency. I love
Those were collected and placed into evidence after the bat was photographed. The detective also located in the den.
Going through your stuff, a lot of crazy stuff, but you already know that.
Yeah.